Kia ora, Lara here, also known as Scrappykea on Instagram, YouTube, here on YouTube, on Facebook, and even on my blog. Today we're celebrating Linda Mowatt's achievement of 500 subscribers on YouTube. It's pretty awesome to get to this point. Being a New Zealand scrapbooker, crafter, it's often a little bit trickier to get that following or to get those subscribers up. But congratulations, Linda, and it's lovely to be hopping along with you today. Now, Linda's challenge to us as part of a group that is celebrating with her in this hop, so make sure you check below for everyone else's videos as well, was to it was scrapbook yourself, or so a self-portrait essentially. Now, I know that Linda has worked on a few different projects lately, and to do with pieces of me, which you can check back on her channel for information about that. And part of that was to scrapbook yourself without putting a photo of yourself on there, and that's kind of cool to have a look at that. I haven't quite done that side of it, however I have pulled in an actual self-portrait, and this photo is just one that I took one Sunday morning, getting ready to head out the door to church, and it was just sort of this, just standing in a kitchen, just that everyday normalcy kind of thing. And just our Sundays, that's what they're all about. Now, I have chosen to use some papers from the Kintsugi's collection by Stampin' Up, and I'm pulling in here some of the strawberry slush colour, which I am sort of blending up so it's darker from the bottom to the top on the party alphabet. Now, you'll notice that I had the two sort of half pages. I had the white Willow cardstock, and I had that piece of paper sort of over to the left. Now, Linda is also a junk journaler. She is involved in quite a few creative type things, and it was just I thought that I'd sort of play on that interest, and by having the two sides as different colours, it's the idea sort of that open book or that open project. So what you just saw me do here while I was yabbering away about that was I used my water brush to do some splatters, and a wee squirty pen to sort of splatter up on these inked up blended letters, and I am going to put them through my stamp and emboss machine just to give a little bit of texture, and you can see that come out there. And so by adding those water splatters, it lifts the colour a little bit. So these inks are pretty cool in that they do have that effect with the water. It sucks some of that colour out and just adds a nice little effect. And I've just added a little bit of sort of glitter there with the sort of sparkle pen known as Wink of Stella. So you can see these here, what I was talking about, those two sides just before, where I've got the that left hand side and the right hand side. Now what I'm going to do is just sort of create a little bit of inking out from the middle out. So I didn't want the sort of that sharp cut off. I wanted to have a little bit of gradual colour change there. And another thing you'll notice if you watch some of Linda's videos is that she does quite like using her mixed media, which is also another junk journaling kind of connection as well, and just building up those colours. So in that little square up there, I have used Cloud Cover, which is a new colour, and while I do have an ink pad of it that was only available to demonstrators, I just decided to use that little cube, which I've just inked up from the refill, and it works quite well. And I've now pulled in, I've forgotten the name of it, I seem to keep forgetting this one, this colour, it's sort of that deep sea colour, which is quite gorgeous as well. It looks kind of moody here. I promise it doesn't come out quite that intense once it's all together, and I'm just adding a little bit of water splatters to suck out some of that colour, as well as that little bit of white paint that I'm just sort of blobbing in there to add some sort of more texture and that more mixed media kind of feel into that, and just wiping those up. Beauty of having a glass mat is that you can have that sort of work surface there and it just wipes away, which is kind of cool. So here we have sort of that inking. I am going to add a little bit more splattering of the colour, so again just tapping that to add a little bit more dimension, texture, interest to that background, so it looks kind of cool, and just sort of cleaning that up a wee bit there, and just pulling out the dry heat tool here just to dry that all up before I carry on. I'm going to bring in a little bit of stamping on this side here, again just to add a bit more texture before I stick down the patterned paper. I bought this stamp set, this is a really bad admission, just for this particular little stamp. I probably will use the other ones at some point in time, but I just decided that I really liked the textural look of this. So you'll see me just sort of put it down and then I turn it around so it's not always just the same dimension, same shape. I could see this working really well with lighter colours, with a little bit more, I think it would look gorgeous, sort of gold and heat embossed. It would be kind of a really gorgeous background effect in there, as well as sort of a little bit of a feature in behind a sentiment or something like that. And there's that paper with those different textures now coming out from behind. Just clean off that stamp. And here is my lettering again. And there's a little bit of a mistake that was obviously meant to be there that I was covering up with the me letters there. So this is how it's all sort of coming together. And I am going to add some stitching. So first up, I'm just going to stick down this paper. You'll see on the back here, this Kintsugi paper has got sort of that broken threaded feel. It's quite a gorgeous concept if you want to find out a little bit more about what Kintsugi actually is. Now I'm using a close to my heart ruler here with a little bit of foam sort of stuff underneath here to get a bit of pressure, as I want a little bit of even stitching. I've sort of got already that textural rough look, and now I just wanted to make that quite nice and even, so I'm just using that handy dandy tool with the paper piercer on the end and just a roll of white thread, which is left over from the album retreat that I was working on by the time this video goes live last weekend, and enjoyed that process. I did only manage to join the last day live, but I've done 7 of the layouts, so I've still got 5 more to do, and yeah, I will eventually get there. So just making sure that those holes are pierced a little bit firmer, and then I'll carry on with that threading. So I finished the threading and I'm just roughing up the edges of the paper. Now, if you've watched Linda's video already, she mentions how that sort of rough edge thing is something that she's taken from what I commonly do, and so it'd be interesting to see if you notice that connection between both of our work that we get on with. So a little bit of surgery to the letter E, because with the embossing and the texturing and stuff like that, it did give way, and so now I have stuck that back together, and we'll just lift them up with a little bit of dimensionals, just so that they've got that wee bit more pop and lift. And there we go, me. Simple title, very much a self-portrait type one. Just looking through a few other papers that I had picked up. I think a couple of these that I choose are part of the Florals in Bloom collection, and I just wanted to bring a little bit of pink from the lettering over to the other side, and I just really liked this sort of dash paper on sort of that dark colour as well, and how it sort of lifts the photo up and makes it pop a little bit. And there are some other papers that I'm going to pull out as well, and there is one that I do end up not using in the end because it just didn't look right when I put them all down, and it's that white and gold Kintsugi paper. I do really like it, it just wasn't the right place for it at this point in time. I am just roughly cutting around the edges of these papers because I am not going to be I'm going to be roughing up the edges that I talked a little bit before about what I did down that halfway mark as well. You'll see here I'm sort of playing around with the photos, and I just can't quite get them to work with that gold one, the gold and white in the background, and I sort of play around with making it neat and tidy. I kind of wanted that pinky colour over sort of further to the left so it wasn't right beside the title. It just felt like I needed some connection a bit more connection between the two sides, other than just some of that inclusion of the cloud cover across both. So roughing up these edges, squishing them down a bit, and just sort of adding that dimension around the photograph. So now it's sort of time to pull in some of the I've just embellished it, lifted up a little bit. Now I had cut these little die cuts from the Pears die cuts. They're just sort of a white, sort of reminds me of a whole lot of hashtags, but it's sort of the piece of, yeah, it's sort of a rough piece. And I saw, had seen someone do some gorgeous work where this sort of, this dimension was added right to the back of a card or something, and wanted to bring a bit of that in, but I just sort of felt in the end that the photo and the layout didn't quite work for that, so I'm just going to add it to a few different points on the page. So I'm going to pop one down to that bottom right, and then one sort of on the top left, and then bottom right of the photo, just sort of tucking them under, in and around, holding that down there, just giving that tombow some time to sort of adhere to the paper underneath, and tucking one up the top. Now there's some little flowers as well, the little blossoms that are sort of from the pear tree that I've got tucked in there in a few different places, just another little point of interest, as well as down in that bottom right. So just pressing that down and holding those on there. It's looking quite good. I do need to bring in a little bit of journaling, and so, but before I do that, I'm going to add a little bit of that pink as a bit of a splatter down on sort of onto where all of that blue is. I wanted a little bit more in there than was already there with the bold colours. Just wanted to bring it across and just add a little bit more of that mixed media to it. Now this Just a Note stamp and die collection, there's one of my favourite sort of note paper ones is coming out here, and I am just going to cut this put this through the die cut machine, and I'm going to sort of distress it to make it look a little bit older rather than the nice fresh side of it. So putting that through, there's that cool note paper with sort of that ripped off, like it's just been ripped out of some wire binding or something like that. And I'm going to use the line stamp, and I am just deciding what colours to use. I think it's grey granite, or quite a light grey that I pop on here, and it comes out sort of that little bit brown. And then I decide that I'm going to use that same colour just to sort of distress the edges, adding a bit of interest, making it look a little bit aged, a little bit old. So again, I feel that this is a little bit of a connection with the junk journaling side of things. Really hard to try and choose a spot to put this. I had always sort of thought that my journaling would go under the title there, wherever I was going to put it, but I do end up not doing that. I play around with the positioning, the angles, and all that sort of thing before I decide I'm actually going to take half of this off. I quite like how that looks there, so I just rip a piece off, and I'll be able to use that other bit another time. So I'm just adding some journaling here, saying just a girl standing in her kitchen on a Sunday morning, essentially. And I took this photo in June, so I added the month and the year on there to put that into the page. So it's pretty much done. It is time to add a few more embellishments. So I'm going to dig through a wee container that I've got there that I've slowly collected pieces from, and just pulling out some little die cuts that I have coloured, some stamps, and some pattern paper that I've taken some bits out of. It's quite good having a few extras of these to tuck away, because you've always got some bits that you can tap into or pull on to help you out. And I did wonder about that little orange flower, thinking maybe it'd be quite nice to bring in another colour. At the moment you've sort of got just that pink and blue, but I decided just to leave that as it is, leave those colourways as they sort of are. I do bring in the foliage or the leaves that have got a slightly green, but I feel that that still tonally fits with what's already there. And just sort of working out some places to stick these, some dimensionals and some just using that green tombow. Working out position, yep, tucking that there. So you'll sort of see I've created almost a visual triangle between that sort of left-hand corner of the photo, the title, and that bottom right little cluster of embellishments. And I'm just adding in some little enamel or little gem dots that have got the pinky colours to them, the strawberry slush tones, paler and darker. Hey, thanks for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this hop. And here are just some close-up photos that you can enjoy. Please make sure you check out the rest of the playlist. And thanks again, and huge congratulations, Linda.